How are you doing today?
Can't complain. It's another day. We're alive, we're well, so you
Ex-
can't complain.
Exactly, exactly. Well, I'm hanging in there. It's very good to talk to you. I'm pleased that you're able to join us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
My pleasure.
So, are you here? Yeah, yeah, we know you are, and we're glad you are plugged into the Paul Leslie Hour. This happens to be episode number 1036. Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, today we're pleased to present an interview with political writer and attorney Elad Hakim. Now, Mr. Hakim's columns have appeared in some of the top political publications, including Right Revolution News. Mr. Hakim joins us during extraordinary times here in the USA. Here we are, just 6 days from America's ultimate election. Speaking of extraordinary, why not subscribe to Paul's YouTube channel? Uh-huh. That's a smart thing to do, and be sure to share it with all like-minded peoples. That would be mostly your friends. And now, let's go!
I want to properly introduce this man, Elad Hakim. He is an attorney and columnist. I've been enjoying his stories on Right Revolution News, and that's Right, WRITE. You may have also seen his columns in The Federalist, The Daily Caller, Town Hall. But I wanted to get your perspectives on a few things that, in particular, right now, are words and subjects that you are going to see a lot in the news right now. And I've been seeing a lot of this word fascism.
Fascist. You yourself have not used that word to describe him. Let me ask you tonight, do you think Donald Trump is a fascist?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
And I'm curious to know from your perspective, this attribution that is coming to Donald Trump that he's a fascist, how does that hit you?
Well, look, I mean, it's not surprising to hear some of the words that are coming from the left. I think the most recent word, that has come out is Nazi and, references to Hitler and Nazi Germany. And, I think first it is entirely vile, it's vulgar, and it is, if it wasn't so disgusting, it would be comical when you look at Trump's actual record and the people who he's helped. For example, to refer to Trump as Nazi when viewed in light of everything he's done for Israel and everything he's done for Jews, and just based on his record, it's insane to make such references. But look, it's coming from a party and it's coming from a candidate who I think is in serious trouble and who really doesn't have any substantive policies to sell to the American people. So what are they doing? They are, like they always do. They're trying to tug at the strings and the emotions, try to garner votes. But there's nothing. If you look at Trump's history and his record, there's absolutely nothing to support such a label. Nothing. I mean, it's just a absurd reference, and it is a disgusting reference and a complete shot and disrespect to the many millions of people who, for example, perished during the Holocaust at the hands of the Nazis.
Did you watch the coverage of the Madison Square Garden event the other day?
I watched Trump's speech.
Mhm.
That's all I had a chance to watch.
What did you think of this comparison that's being made that because of the fact that the Nazis had a Madison Square Garden rally, that somehow that makes what Donald Trump had comparable?
It's silly. I mean, anyone with any basic understanding of knowledge or any sort of basic understanding of how arguments work knows that that's fallacious. I mean, what if A then B then C? I mean, if Trump, if Nazis had things going on or rallies going on at MSG, the fact that Trump has a similar rally at MSG means that Trump is a Nazi. That's insane. That's full of logical fallacies and it makes no sense at all. It's just silly. It is the same type of arguments that Democrats have been making, the same type of fake news. It's trying to tug at emotions. It's trying to rile up people to get them upset because there's absolutely no policies that they can sell. They can't sell any policies. To date, they haven't been able to sell any policies. You look at Kamala Harris, she can't answer a single question. So what do? They turn around and they try to rile people up based on emotion.
I'm curious, you're an attorney, and a part of me thinks, well, you could probably maximize your business and not get involved in any controversies. You could steer clear of anything political, but you've decided instead to write columns and about sometimes controversial subjects. What is your motivation? What makes you want to do the writing that you do?
I've had so many discussions with people about this. They tell me, you risk your professional, reputation, you risk your social relationships. And I'll tell you what, it's a couple things. One, you want to educate with all the fake news out there. You look at the mainstream media and they all have an agenda, right? Every single one of them has an agenda. So they peddle out fake news. And I think it's up to us to educate people as to what really is going on out there to the best of our knowledge. Second, I think that the bigger risk is that, especially for conservatives and for Republicans, Trump supporters, if we sit quietly and we don't stand out and talk, then we run the risk. We're creating a very dangerous precedent because, for example, a lot of people I know say, well, look, we're afraid because our employers are going to retaliate against us. They're going to fire us. You know what? If they fire you for speaking out honestly and, and saying things that are actually legal that you're allowed to say, if they're going to retaliate against you for that, what's to say they're not going to retaliate against you for the next thing that they deem offensive? So we are not out there living for others. We are living for ourselves, and we cannot allow others to control what we say when it's legally permissible to say it. So that's kind of the motivation. It's twofold. We have to stand up for the truth because there are so many others out there that are peddling fake news. And second, we need to educate people. You know how many people are voting that they don't know the first thing about why they're voting or what they're voting for. They just listen to the fake news and vote for whatever they're told.
Well, it's interesting on the topics of danger and safety, these two opposite subjects. You wrote a recent column about safety. And if you're to believe the legacy media, Trump poses this existential threat. If he is elected again, we will be in grave danger. But your column pointed out something quite different. I'm hoping you can talk about that.
They're trying to paint Trump as this threat. And, ironically, it's the Republican Party that has kind of morphed into the party of acceptance. And Trump is kind of the leader of that pack. I don't know if you noticed, but just recently, I think it was in Michigan, he was endorsed by a bunch of Muslim leaders, and which is a big deal, by the way, because Michigan is an important state. But Trump isn't the threat. Trump is actually the one who's trying to protect against the threat. The Democrats right now, just take a look at what they've done. They have basically thrown out the Constitution. They have disregarded Supreme Court precedent. They have penalized free speech. They have weaponized the justice system against Trump and those who are his closest advisors. All of these things, think about what will happen if, God forbid, Kamala Harris gets in, because she is Biden 2.0. She's not only as bad as Biden, she's worse than Biden. We can kiss our Supreme Court goodbye if Kamala Harris gets in charge. You want to talk about abortion? They try to paint Trump as some abortion, a person who's going to nationalize abortion or take abortion rights away. Kamala Harris will allow abortion until after birth. So you're talking about all these, how Trump is an allegedly someone who's going to take away your freedoms. It's just the opposite. He has fought tooth and nail at the expense of his very life at times with these assassination attempts to protect the rule of law, the Constitution, and democracy. And that's why it's crucial that he's reelected.
Well, I'm very curious. A lot of people are afraid to make predictions. I think predictions are fascinating. Elad, do you have any predictions about what is now in the single digits away? And I'm talking, of course, about Election Day 2024, America's ultimate election.
I have since day one thought that Trump was going to win re-election. I think if you're a religious person, you also have to have something, faith. And you start to take a look around and you see everything that Trump has endured, even these assassination attempts. And you begin to think to yourself, God is watching over this guy. I mean, I don't want to sound kind of, a little bit weird about things, but God is watching over him. And there's a reason why God is watching over him. Tilt of the head the wrong direction and something, God forbid, much worse could have happened. So I think with everything that he's endured and the fact that Republicans are not the Republicans of 2020, if Democrats think that they're just going to have all these magical ballots appear in the middle of the morning, Republicans are not going to fall for that anymore. So I think that Republicans have toughened up a little bit. I think they're more on to what is happening. I think they have some great legal teams in place kind of around the country now. And I think the biggest thing is just there's some sort of divine intervention. I think that Trump was meant for this time, and it's intended for Trump to win re-election now to save the country. Because if he doesn't win, I don't know if and when the country can rebound. I really don't. I mean, just for the past 4 years, the country's gone to hell. And if we have 4 more years of Kamala Harris, I just don't know what'll happen.
Yeah, it's chilling to think about it. I'm curious, since your background is that of law, what do you make of the constant everything from prosecutions to lawsuits, everything that has come at Donald Trump?
I am very disappointed in what I've seen from lawyers who really have brought cases that should have never been brought, to judges who have allowed cases that should never have been brought to proceed. And I'm thankful for the Supreme Court. And if, ironically, who are the Democrats most upset with? They're not upset with the judges in DC or in Manhattan or in Georgia. They're upset with the Supreme Court because the Supreme Court is the one court right now that has stood in the way of their efforts to basically create a police state. I mean, they basically want to control everything that we say, we do, what we can say, what we can do. So very disappointed. I'm happy to see that at least the judge down in Florida had the courage to go ahead and toss out the Mar-a-Lago case, the document case. And I hope that the appellate court upholds it. We're waiting for a decision on it, but very disappointing. And I'll tell you, I know a lot of lawyers, they're saying, look, why would we want to be in this profession anymore? Where's the justice here? You see an innocent man who's all he wants to do is make the country great again for everybody. And he's being threatened with life in prison and bankruptcy for doing nothing. And the courts are allowing it. So why would you want to go into a profession like that? It's very sad. It's very, very sad.
Yeah, to say the least. Well, are you writing anything at the moment?
I am, I'm actually writing. I think about a year ago, I wrote a letter to Trump, basically telling him how much we support him. And I'm writing a letter now, basically, as the election comes near, just thanking him for everything that he has done for us. I think he's a once in a lifetime type president. And he has created a movement that, although he may not be there to kind of lead it in the spotlight, I think that he's taught voters what it means to be tough and what it means to demand more from those in Congress. Because you know what? We notice now that those in the government, they don't give a damn about what we want. A lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them, and Trump has taught us that you stand strong to your convictions, even when the circumstances are the toughest, and you demand and what we think is right. At the end of the day, they work for us. And if they don't do what they're supposed to do for us, then they're going to have to look for another job. So just kind of a thank you for everything that you've done and for the movement that you created and for putting America before your own self-interest. I mean, we all know he didn't need to do this. He had plenty of money. He could be on vacation somewhere, and he certainly didn't need to run for re-election. And in doing so, he put country first and his personal interests second. And that takes a special type of person.
And that's very thoughtful of you. Now, what do you see yourself doing on election night 2024?
Probably watching it by myself or with the family. And then listen, just hoping, it's amazing to me how some of these swing states have already come out and said that it's going to take them a week or two to count the ballots. I mean, it's insane because I live in Florida, and Florida is a big state, and somehow Florida finishes the ballots on election night. And you're trying to tell me that states like Arizona and Michigan or whatever it is, they can't count it. It takes another week or two to count the ballots. That is unheard of. And that's why people have no faith in the system. I mean, how can you possibly take that long to count ballots?
It's very strange, to say the least.
Strange, yeah. Strange is putting it mildly.
Right.
Strange is mild. I mean, think about it. You can sit there, count the ballots. You know how many ballots come in on election night, and then you have another week or two to kind of, hey, to kind of count more ballots.
Right.
I think eventually the Supreme Court is going to be asked. The Supreme Court is eventually going to have to get involved in one of these disputes. They refused last time on standing grounds and all that, but at some point they're going to have to stand, to get involved in one of these because there's too many wishy-washy things happening when it comes to voting and when to count votes and elections. Eventually the court's going to have to step in, I think.
Strange, wishy-washy, fishy. These are all the words we're using to describe our modern election system. That's pretty sad, but that's accurate. Those are the words I would use.
It's sad, and it's sad that an election between someone with this very successful record in Trump is even remotely close with when he's running against somebody with a very poor record and somebody who has not been able to articulate her policies at all. And I think that that's sad. And I think that that's telling about the country right now and where we are.
I always like to let my guest have the last words. So it's a very open-ended question. It always amazes me how many people from all over the country and beyond are tuning in. What would you say to anybody who's joining us right now?
I would say that in 2020, people who voted for Joe Biden had the luxury of a country that was in pretty good shape. We were on the rebound with COVID, and some of these people were willing to take a chance on Joe Biden because they disliked Trump. In 2024, the country is really a dying nation. And those benefits that these people enjoyed in 2020 no longer exist. So now people have to decide, are they going to vote for somebody who is really going to improve their lives, the lives of their kids and their grandchildren, even if they don't like every single aspect of his personality? Or are they going to vote for somebody who has failed to give any policies and who is basically going to bankrupt the country if she's in office? So I would just ask them to vote, with their mind instead of with their emotion, and do what's best for the country.
Sound advice. Everybody out there, if you're on X, find Elad. I'm following him. Here is his Twitter profile. It's just at Elad Hakim. Be sure and give him a follow. Elad, sir, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to meet with you, and I hope we have a chance to talk again sometime.
I look forward to it. And thanks so much for having me on.
All right, sir. Well, bless you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
You know, the Paul Leslie Hour is made possible by people like you, listeners, viewers. Please go to thepaulleslie.com/support, and you'll know what to do when you're there. Thank you. Thank you, everyone who contributes. Performance of The Entertainer intro song by John Primorano. And of course, this is your announcer speaking. See you next time on the Paul Leslie Hour.